I have done so many things, but that's because I've been here forever. I'm getting ready to start, I think, my 35th year at the university, and I want to welcome all of you. I had a chance to say hello to some of you during the break, and I hope you're really having a good day, and and I believe that this experience really helps you get off to a good start at Murray State. I think you'll find, and I know I'm probably repeating what other people have said, this university is a very welcoming kind of place. Faculty who really enjoy working together, both within departments and across departments and colleges. And so I'm glad you're here. I hope that as we go along, as you start your first semester here at Murray State, or maybe second if there are people here who came in back in January, that you have a really wonderful experience here. I may say something about myself, but I think the important thing is for us to get to the meat of the matter here. Our purpose is to provide you with kind of an overview of experiences that faculty members have during their first years at Murray State. And we have, I guess, our senior faculty member next to me is Dr. Howard Whiteman. And what I'll do is let them introduce themselves. I know Dr. Whiteman has been here 18 years. The others may have clearer memories than the two of us because they've been here 10 years or less. But Dr. Whiteman, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Howard Whiteman. I'm a professor in biology, and I'm also director of our Watershed Studies Institute. Some of you may know of that. And yeah, I've been here 17 years. I teach and do research in evolutionary ecology and conservation biology. And I don't know what else. I think that's my bio, actually, on the back. Yeah, that's right.
I'm Heidi Ortega, and I work in the Department of Theater. I'm the costume designer there. And I got tenure last year. So I guess that makes this my 7th year. I'm bad at math, that's why I'm in theater. I don't know, I mean, that's really me in a nutshell.
That's good. That's good. Thanks, Heidi.
I'm Frances Smith. I am in organizational communication in the Bauernfeind College of Business, and so I started in 2008. And so I guess I've been 7 years. This is the beginning of the 8th year, and so I'm really excited to get to be here and talk to you guys.
I'm Jessica Neighbor. I teach in the School of Nursing. I'm an assistant professor going up for tenure this year. This is the beginning of my 9th year teaching, so I'm glad to meet all of you.
My name is Daniel Hepworth. I also am going up for tenure. This year has completed my 5th, going into my 6th year. So if you don't see me next year, you know why. I teach in the criminal justice program, which is part, along with social work, rec, and nonprofit leadership, of the community leadership and human services department.
And very quickly, I am actually officially retired from Murray State, but I managed to secure a half-time teaching position. So I am in the College of Education and Human Services. I teach and I direct a couple of study abroad programs for the college and try to work with faculty who are interested in developing education abroad programs. We are going to start with Daniel, and we'll just go down and we'll kind of rotate the questions here a little bit. But the first question is, what is the best advice you received as a new faculty member?
Best advice I received, there was a bunch I remember. Probably the one that comes to mind, maybe not even the best, but the one that comes to mind first, is to write everything down. As new faculty especially, you will be hit with opportunities to sit on committees and engage in all types of service. Sort of the subset to that piece of advice I'm sure I'm taking from somebody else is to pace yourself on committee work, service, what have you. Primarily because your chairs want you to succeed, they're going to throw everything they can at you to get you enough service. Maybe this is just my thought on this, but not to say that any of these, the three of service, teaching, and research, are less important than the others, because we're all equally special, right? I would say service is the least of a concern. Teaching evaluations have to be high. Research is sort of the thing that scares you, it scares me. Still does. But when you're sitting in all these committees, like I was literally standing outside today, and I realized I haven't written this down yet. So I made a little note saying when I get back to my office, I'm going to put this in my file. I keep a rolling file. I can take it all the way back to 2010 of just about everything I've done, from meeting with students. The first year I wrote down when I ran in 5Ks, because those are community service and money goes to the hospital or whatever. Write down everything, because at the end of the year, you're going to have to go through your evaluation, maybe start of next year, whenever your department does that. You're going to want to report that. It's going to be easy to find your teaching evaluations. You'll remember if you got published or not that year, but to remember the date or whether or not it was last year or 3 years ago you did that one, write it down. If you didn't write it down, it didn't happen.
That is very good advice. A lot of the same things that I was thinking about keeping, like with your CV, just kind of keeping it ongoing. I even don't wait till the end of the year and do it, but just at the end of the day, I add something if I do it, so that you don't have to remember all of that. And not overcommitting, so learning how to say no, and probably a lot of you have trouble with that, if I could guess. Sometimes it's kind of hard to say no, and you want to do everything, but you do have to kind of pick and choose what you're going to do. Also, using your resources, and by that I mean faculty members. So you have a wealth of knowledge and experience at your fingertips with the people you're going to be working with. So be sure that you use them. Most of us are willing to help you and answer your questions and be there for you. So use those resources. Have a mentor that you can go to and feel comfortable asking what you think are silly questions.
Good. Look for opportunities to try to use or better yourself in the ways that you think you need the help. So if you're struggling in an area of teaching and you have a colleague or someone who is in your department or in your college that you think could help you with that, don't be afraid to go and ask for that assistance, ask for that help. If you have research concerns, or if you have a large data set, or if you have a dissertation or something, go ahead and right away start breaking that up and sending that out and creating your research articles, and don't be shy. Go ahead and start making that happen so that you can begin to get that process going if you haven't already. So don't hesitate to capitalize on the opportunities that you have. Same thing goes in terms of being able to work with students as well. We have lots of opportunities in terms of the research front to work with grad students, work with undergraduate students, and be able to incorporate them into that process. And that gives them great experience, as well as you getting that experience, being able to work with them and have some collaborative opportunities. And so make use of the opportunities that you have to work with others to help strengthen your own teaching research and potentially service opportunities, as well as to be able to further what you need to do in order to meet the goals that you want to meet.
Best advice that I was given is to keep your head down, your ears open, to kind of just get the lay of the land before you come bursting in with all your great ideas and your great ways to change the department and change this and change that and change everything. Because other people might not see that as a good thing. And it's really, really hard to backpedal if you've made a bad impression, and some people hold on to that stuff. So it's better to just kind of, give some time, assess the personalities, and then you can better assess what does need to be changed or thought about or reassessed, and the best way to approach those people to get what you want done. Because you go barreling in before you know how to finesse the situation, you're probably not going to get it, right? So that was the best advice that I was given: is ears open, mouth closed.
I will. I'm going last, right? So I will agree with everything that's been said so far, and I guess that I would say I will reinforce what was said earlier about learning how to say no and not overextending yourself. As a new faculty member, depending on where you came from and how you're transitioning from this previous position to the new one, it's a challenge. It can be a challenge with the course load and the expectations and all those sorts of things. And it can also be difficult to say no, because a department chair or another faculty member that is in a senior position is going to ask you to try to contribute to different things. And so it's not an easy thing to learn how to say no, especially in your first few years. But figuring that out and learning how not to overextend yourself can be really important in terms of just your quality of life. You know, there are ways to make it work, and people do. They navigate it and they figure it out. And if you're not sure exactly how to go about that, then finding a good mentor in your department, someone that you look up to, or you trust, or maybe you don't know them well enough, but in a few weeks you'll figure it out. Those are all great ideas.
I agree. Thank you all. And I would add, with the idea of trying to find ways to say no if you start feeling overwhelmed. Sometimes a department chair or a dean or a senior faculty member may not be aware of all of the things you're doing, particularly after your first, second, third year and things. You're on this committee and that committee and maybe on a university committee, and they may not be aware. And so I think it's important when you do say no to be able to say, here are the other things that I'm involved in, here are my other service commitments, and I don't feel that I can give time to this, to make them aware of what you're doing.
Can I just mention that,
Yeah.
and I don't think it was mentioned earlier, that you were provost, and so you're bringing a different, you have a perspective all the way up in the academic world here, and so I think that's important for people to understand, is that you see it from all those different perspectives. Many of us see it from a different perspective perhaps, but I don't think anyone on the panel gives the perspective that you can give.
Well, thanks, Howard.
So, sure.
My real place in this world, though, is as a faculty member, so I don't think about that. But I did have to look at that. And in reviewing,
We're glad to have you back.
one of the very interesting things about serving as provost, and I was provost for 3 years, was that I did review all of the tenure applications and all of the promotion applications. And so I was able to see across the spectrum of disciplines the kind of work that our faculty do and the kind of service and the research and so on. And you will learn as you get into your department and talk to your chair and to your colleagues what the expectations are for you and your department, because they do vary. Music, and I talked to a couple of new music faculty, are evaluated in different ways and for different kinds of research products than physicists, and they're different from education folks, and so it does vary. And as you learn about that and learn what the expectations are for service and for research, and what, I hate to use the word products, but what types of products you're expected to produce, then you'll kind of know how to set your course and know who to talk to help you set your course. And then one other thing about that I still remember when I went up for tenure. I was in education, but I found it important to take a look at a tenure application from someone outside of education. I wanted to see what another one looked like. And so I had a friend who was in economics, a professor in economics, and he went up for tenure the year before I went up for tenure, went up for promotion right before I went up for promotion, and he let me look at his stuff. And that really helped me kind of get a sense for what was expected at a university level by different colleges. So I highly recommend that as well. Let's see, Jessica. What opportunities were beneficial to you during your first years, or maybe your first year as a faculty member? What are some things that really helped you?
Okay. Well, I was thinking about this question kind of as opportunities. What opportunities have I had here and in the first few years? I talked to a couple people who were speaking about working on their terminal degrees. So maybe having some support while you're doing that, which is a great thing to have people there to support you, and possibly even some release time so that you're able to do that work. So the opportunity to work on that degree, if that's something of interest to you, and the support that you'll have is great. Also, I think it's an opportunity to be able to work with students. We haven't really mentioned that yet, and I think that just being able to get close to your students, get to know them, be there for them, and having an open door when they need you, that is crucial to them and to you. And I think that you'll find that's just going to be probably the most important thing. So to me, that's an opportunity to get to know them and work closely with them. And somebody mentioned collaborating, so you feed off of one another. You learn from them, they learn from you, and you're able to produce a lot of things together. So that's something to take advantage of also. One more thing I want to mention too is study abroad. So I think Bonnie, this is dear to her heart, I know, but at Murray State, that's a huge initiative. You've probably heard about this today already, but the opportunities to study abroad, teach abroad, take students and go places and do things. So if that's of interest to you, that's something that is there for you all the time, and you can come up with great ideas that have to do with your discipline, create things yourself, or tag along with someone who's done it before. And so at any point in your career, first year, later on, whatever you decide, you could take advantage of that too.
Yeah, there are lots of great opportunities to be involved with students, and I think that hopefully if you want to be involved in this kind of career, hopefully you like students. And so if you want to be involved with students, there are lots of great ways to do that. And so those are wonderful ways. You can also be involved in residential colleges or other student organizations. That can be really beneficial and has been a great opportunity for me as well. Being involved. I'm involved in a campus ministry that I work with, and it's been great getting to know the students on that level, as well as getting to know them in the classroom and getting to work with them in other ways. And so that's one opportunity I've really enjoyed. Another opportunity too that I have found that was really interesting for me in my first few years is serving on university-wide committees. And so, you have lots of opportunities to be involved, of course, on your departmental committees and maybe in college committees. But for example, I was on CISR for a while, and that's a university-wide committee that reviewed grants for research scholarships. And it was really interesting to me to see what kind of research was happening all across the university, and it was so educational for me to see what kinds of things were happening in the sciences and in other areas that were very different from what was happening in business, and so that was really fascinating, as well as getting to meet people from all across the university. And so being involved in university-wide committees as well as in committees that are closer to your own department was also a really neat opportunity.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah.
I served as a faculty senator, not my very first year, but in my next year, and then I only stopped last year, and I found it absolutely fascinating. And it really put me out there so that I met people across campus that I never, ever would have met before. And so I felt like walking down campus, like I recognized people and people recognized me. I'm in a very small department. I stay down in my costume shop by myself. It's a very isolated department that I'm in. And that it can be true for lots of disciplines. And so getting out can be really hard. And it's not that we don't want to, it's just that it's really hard to do that and do your job and do everything else. But when you're on these committees that are university-wide, you learn about the university in addition to being on the specific, committee. So it's a really wonderful thing to do. The other thing that I took advantage of my first year and even my second year was all of the training that CTLT offers.
Yes.
Same thing. I got to meet all of these people in other disciplines, and I got to figure out the nuances of Murray State. The different programs and the different way they do things and all this stuff. Plus, I got lots of free lunches. It was really awesome. I'm in theater. I'm all about free food. So, okay. So that was great. And you sign up, you can go. I learned how to do all these different things that a lot of the people in my department didn't know how to do, and they have been there for years. And so it's not something you only have to do your first years, but it was really just kind of part of that, ongoing training kind of thing. I'm starting a new job, so I'm training all this stuff. So it's a really easy thing to just kind of roll into and keep doing. So I highly recommend that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first I'll say that after 18 years, the graduate student mentality of getting free lunches has not changed. I don't expect it will change with any enjoy the graduate school on the way to tenure, And I will let me back up a little bit and reiterate. I agree with everything that everyone said so far. Especially about the committees. The one thing I would say about committees, from my perspective, is that there's always an effort to sort of minimize the amount of committee work that you actually have. But there's also, I don't know that you definitely would like to get onto collegiate and certainly university level committees at some point. but I wouldn't push that your first couple years. I mean, you know, maybe this works in different colleges in different ways, but I think it's important to sort of grow into that and get used to your departmental committees and then your collegiate committees and then get to the university committee. But you absolutely do want to do that at some point, or try to do that, because I agree, you gain a perspective on the university that you don't gain any other way. And you meet people and interact with people at those level communities that you don't otherwise do. And so those can be very valuable things. I don't think there's a whole bunch of them though, so there's also, you know, there's this difficulty of actually making that happen. And, you know, the technical resources here have changed a lot over the past 18 years. And our ability to do things online and with all the resources that we have changed. The support staff for that has been great. And I think that you'll find that there's a lot of benefit to, you know, asking questions and calling the helpline and figuring out you're gonna get a lot of help. Finally, I would say that the organization that's helped me a lot early on and continues to is our URSA office, which is Undergraduate Research and Scholarly Activity. And this is an office that supports undergraduate research and other scholarly activity. So even if you're in a discipline that doesn't do research per se, but you do performances or other things that move along, that are basically providing experience and understanding for these students in a different way, the URSA office, I think, has been a valuable resource. And I hope it continues to be a valuable resource into the future. And we have a Scholars Week every spring that you may have already heard about, that is a week-long celebration of undergraduate research and activity. And we have symposia, and there's poster sessions right in this room, and banquets and things like that. And so that office and the people that are on the URSA committee, which is another committee to be on, also provide grant resources for small projects for students. And the students are involved in writing the grant and developing. It's not just a faculty-driven sort of thing. So those are all things that have developed since I've been here and have improved the university and improved the experience for not only the students but also for the faculty, and particularly for new faculty.
I'll just keep this brief because most of the important material has been covered. Yes, university-wide committee work, college-wide committee work, that sort of thing. URSA was actually my very first committee, I think, that I was put on ever. And I will say, in regards to his comment about student research, URSA is always, I haven't sat on it for a while, but I know they're always pushing to try and get more undergraduate faculty research going, especially outside of the hard sciences. They just dominate everything, so go away. The rest of you can come in and help us out with that. Not that I do it. Although I do have to backtrack a little bit on what was said earlier about Faculty Senate. I'm on Faculty Senate right now. It's definitely a great opportunity to do once you're tenured. I'm getting a little bit ahead. I know the question's coming up, but politics are politics, and you don't get much more political than the Senate. And I think it's one of those things where not only is it good to have a little more of a footing under you to kind of understand more of what's going on before you go sit on Faculty Senate, but if there's any committee where you can piss somebody off right quick, that's the one. And I don't want to believe that people would hold anything against anybody, but it can be very contentious very quickly. And I actually know that our current Faculty Senate president is pushing to actually make it so that non-tenured faculty cannot sit on the Senate, because he wants to protect new faculty. And I think there's a lot to be said for something like that. Finally, I'll just say anything you can do to work with the students outside of a classroom type of setting. From day one, I have been very involved with our criminal justice student organization. I'm actually faculty sponsor for it now. I love doing that because it's an opportunity for me to go and get to know my students in a non-academic environment. I get to know them, they get to know me, and it's quite a bit of fun.
Thank you. And I have to add one more thing. One of my other jobs for a few years here at Murray State was as a residential college head. And I found that experience to be extremely rewarding. But one thing I saw, because all faculty are assigned to a residential college, and it's not by academic departments, so there's not a residential college for business or a residential college for science. So it's a miniature Murray state, eight miniature Murray states within our residential college system. And so often I saw faculty get to know one another at a residential college event, and either just develop friendships, just plain old fun friendships, or develop actual professional relationships to conduct research together, to advise a student group together, or whatever. So that is another really good place to get a start, and you can do as much or as little as you want with the residential colleges. Okay, third question here, and we've touched on this a little bit, but I'll see if our panelists have anything to add here about managing to juggle teaching, research, and service. Frances.
Okay. Well, kind of going with what was already been said about knowing what you can handle and being able to say no when you need to. Certainly there's a temptation as new faculty to say yes to everything, and you're going to want to do that, but just be aware. One of our new faculty in our department, just in the last couple of years after he finished his first year, we were getting ready, close to graduation and all, and we were talking. I was like, hey, so how's it been? And he said, I'm tired. I just overwhelmed myself this year, and he had learned pretty quickly that he needed to rethink sort of how he was managing everything, and he had committed to research projects out, with colleagues outside of Murray State, grad school friends and all. So he had committed to that. He was doing all those things as well as the things he was doing here, as well as the other things, as well as family. And you've got a lot going on, I'm sure. And so know what you can handle, know what you can't handle, and try to balance that way. The other thing that I would say is set small goals. And so if you try to look at everything that you need to do all at once, it's going to be very overwhelming. And so if you think too much about that big picture, it can just be crushing. Instead, try to set the small goals. Small steps lead to big results. So set those small goals, try to meet the small goals, and then eventually you'll get to the big picture.
Yeah, a lot of it's already been said. I mean, one of the things that I was going to say is I just had an old-fashioned calendar in my office that I literally wrote down at the end of every month. I tried to do it weekly. That just didn't ever happen because too much stuff going on. But every month I sat down and I looked at the dates and I thought, oh yeah, I was on that. I talked to that student that day about something outside. I did this. Oh, I went to that committee. I went to these sorts of things. Because at the end of the year, you're going to try to do the same thing, and you're not going to remember anything. It's going to be a joke. It's going to be really hard. But if you just go, oh, wait, it was the flower calendar that was that year. Okay. And you can just flip through it, piece of cake. So highly, highly recommend that. I'm trying to remember what the real question was. Juggling. For me, I came in right out of grad school. So this was my very first teaching job. So, and I have a growing family at the same time. So in many ways, I kind of felt like, I had a 4-leg stool instead of 3-leg stool because I had that family going on. Not that everybody doesn't have a family, but I have a 4-year-old. And that was really important to me to think about how I'm going to plan to get tenure and also have children and all these things. And so that was a huge part of the way I planned things, was that I thought, okay, I need to have this article written, I need to have, this book done, I need to have these shows done, whatever your things that you need to have by this time, and then I can probably take a break this summer so that, I could have a child, and then, and then I could continue those things, because doing both at the same time is impossible. So that is something that for me was really important for me in my time management, and it's also just in the health of you, is to remember that there is that other leg of this stool. You're not going to be any good to the university if you're not good to yourself. So.
Well, that was terrific.
Mic drop.
I think I may change my behavior. I agree with that. I guess the one thing that I look at and think about starting out was that it was literally impossible for me to think about research much at first. I was trying to figure out how to teach these classes all simultaneously. And you know, I taught classes before, but not 2 different classes at the same time, or 3 different classes, or whatever it was. You know, and so putting together all those lectures and trying to get all that done, that took up the majority of my time. I thought about research, and I, you know, answered some emails about research, but I didn't. And I had grand plans for the summer, maybe, but it took a while to get that going. And I think it's important to think about that it's okay. You know, you've got. This is why they give you time. I think it's okay. I don't know. This is why they give you time to grow into your position. That you're going to need that time to develop lectures and to get yourself going and to understand how to teach these classes. Depending on how much teaching experience you had. You know, the first time I taught one of those classes, one of my classes, an introductory biology class, I was horrible at it. It was horrible. And I had to, like, the next time I taught it, I had to start over, basically. I mean, I didn't start it completely, but I had to just look at it and say, why is it that I was so bad? And, you know, what was it? How do I reach these non-majors? You know, what is it about them? You know, and so I really had to think hard about that. And that took another cycle. But eventually it gets better. And you figure it out, and it gets easier, and you understand your students, and you understand what you're supposed to be doing and how you're doing it, and then you can pull in the research, and then you can spend a little bit more time on committees maybe, or you can get involved with other things, and so don't try to do it all at once. That's the whole saying no thing, you know. Don't try to do it all at once, because right now, getting that teaching together and developing that for you, however you do that, is, to me, the most important thing. And then building on that, and then, you know, 6 years out, you'll be in business. Yeah.
I think that was the best piece of advice we've heard all day. Eventually it gets better. Just hang on to that.
It does.
It does.
Right.
It does. It does?
Next
Okay,
year,
I'm waiting.
Yeah, another year it gets better. Yeah.
2 things that really haven't been touched on. Summer is your friend. I know you're on 10-month contract. Hopefully in grad school you all figured out that even if you weren't taking classes in the summer, that was a great time to get work done. Most of my research I still do is done in the summer. In fact, I've got an article sitting on my desk right now. I'm proofreading them, trying to get sent off before Tuesday. So that's one thing. The other thing is to actually take a great piece of advice I was given going into graduate school. I think apply it here. When I went into graduate school, I was told, don't do the biggest and best and most awesomest piece of research dissertation. Get in, get done, get out, get the hell out, get on with your life. Same thing here. Yes, you want to do good research. You want to be able to publish in a good journal. But I know people that try and pick projects that are going to last them 6-7 years, and how many pubs are they getting out of a project that's going to last them that long, and you go for tenure in your 6th year, and So whether it's taking your dissertation and turning it into smaller publications, which you should be able to do, hopefully, or, you know, I'm the king of secondary research, so I hate data collection, so go that route, whatever it is you have to do. You know, if you got to get 2 or 3 or, you know, 5 or however many pubs you have to get, or presentations, or whatever your field requires, just be smart about that in that way, and then over time you will begin to develop into these grand projects. You'll develop connections, however you're going to do it, but do that after your tenure. Now, I said do it after graduate school. They lied. Do it after tenure, when you can really, really take your time and kind of play with it and do what you want.
Okay, so a lot of people have talked quite a bit about research and some about service, but I'm going to touch a little bit more on service too. You know that you're required to do so many things and this many committees and be involved in these many things. If you can find something and be lucky enough to get involved in something you like to do, that is great. So just like I mentioned, study abroad. I knew from moment one, if there's anything study abroad, send it my way. I want to be on that committee. I want to be the study abroad ambassador. I want to be on the International Studies Advisory Committee. So try to find your place in those things that you really love to do. I'm also involved with the honors program because that was something I was really interested in. So if you can try to, you know, get your foot in the door in those ways, things that you really like to do. And also, if there are organizations or committees that kind of combine more than one of these facets, then you can do that too. So an example, we have nursing organization, Sigma Theta Tau. It's an honors society for nursing that emphasizes research and this travel and study abroad aspect. So by me being involved in that, I'm able to kind of get my foot in the research and the study abroad and the honors stuff. So you can find ways, and I call it double dipping, things that you can, you know, do multiple tasks and things that you need to get accomplished in one setting.
Great advice. I had jotted down words like doable and double dipping and those kinds of things, managing your time wisely and combining things wherever possible really can help you. And I guess I need to say that at Murray State, and this is true of most universities, but certainly at Murray State, tenure will not be awarded unless there is strong evidence of good teaching. So when Howard talked about working on teaching, that's really good advice. It is really important to get that worked out early on. And if you're struggling to get help from within your department or beyond your department so that your teaching can be very solid, and then to begin to move into research and as much service as you have time for or are expected to do.
We have room for about one more question.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes,
Let me
so
see.
I don't know if you guys want to choose from what is left.
Let's go with the last one, and then add anything else that you would like to say, because there might, if we go quickly, there might be time for a question or two from the group. What is the one thing you would have done differently as a new faculty member?
See, I don't want to take yours. I know what yours is, but ours is the same. and it kind of goes along with this. It's that, you know, don't do the big research project immediately. It's worry less. You know, you're going to be so freaked out about all of the things that you have to do that you might just become completely immobile. And then you're not doing anything. And so that's worse. So realize that it's really actually just, you know, something that is totally manageable if you just take it one bite at a time, you know? And like I said before, you know, if you are managing that and managing yourself, then it really will happen. It's not this terrible juggle that the balls are going to hit you in the head and you're going to die. It's really just a fun game if you can actually just change the way you're approaching it, which is what I wish I would have done.
I think we've touched on this a couple times, right, about saying no. I didn't say no enough, and I overextended myself, and I got involved in collaborations that I just was over my head, you know, and I couldn't meet deadlines, and that didn't look that good from the outside, I'm sure, but it also was very aggravating internally because I was trying to do a good job. I just, you know, sure, and then I couldn't do any more. And so, and that's difficult because, you know, they've hired you because you're awesome. And so you get into this department and they want these awesome people to interact, and then there's faculty members like, oh yeah, they could do this with us. And, oh, I have this great project, you want to do this? And they're all excited, and some older faculty they don't think about your life or your world or what it was like when they were a starting faculty member. And so I've tried not to do that to the new faculty in our department because I remember what it was like when I was overextended and when I was pulled in all these different directions. So
I'm going to tweak the question just a little bit to more as like general advice. I said earlier to write down whatever you do in regards to service. Also keep a rigid calendar. Don't like abide by it rigidly, but I mean map out your classes, your office hours, and give yourself some time. This is gonna sound weak, but give yourself some you time. Give yourself some time, not even so much to grade papers, so you don't have students knocking down your door. Give yourself time to work on research, whatever it is. I'm more than a little OCD. Sometimes I'll even map out like what I'm doing in my free time the week ahead because that just works for me. But I did that from day one, and I was thinking about, you know, what regrets I had, what I would have done differently, and there's not a whole lot that came to mind. And I think that was because I have always been very rigid in that sense. the other thing, maybe this goes back to more what I would have done differently, and jumping to one of the questions we skipped was about politics. Don't. I mean, just stay away, stay out. And everyone knows that, everyone thinks that, but that doesn't so much mean, avoid, certain activities. This means don't gossip. This means don't listen to what other people have said. I can't tell you the number of times I have had people that I know, like, and used to trust, tell me about people that I'm going to be working with soon. They had nothing good to say about these people whatsoever. Some of the best people I know. People I would absolutely go to bat for. Piece of advice I was given by a guy even a year ago. He said, "Dear God," he said, "do not gossip. Anyone who will gossip with you will gossip about you. Even people you think are your friends, people you think you can trust, maybe you can, maybe you can't. And you say the wrong thing around the wrong person, and we've all put the wrong thing in an email or copied the wrong person, or just don't. It's hard, and we're all going to fail at it. But do your absolute best to not." That's something I have to tell myself every day. I'm a talker, I'm outgoing, it's really easy for me to do this. And it's something that I have to stop at. Just don't get into it. Keep your head down.
I guess I'll just echo the not overcommitting and pacing yourself along the way. You don't have to do everything the first year, and you'll wear yourself out and burn out if you do try to do that. So be very careful about that. And along those lines, if you have families and you have friends, spend time with them. Don't forget they exist. That's going to be your support system as you go along too. And another bit of advice I was given that I did not do that I now wish that I would have is if you are somebody who's trying to get published and do research, write every day. So take time to do some writing every single day. I was given that advice, and I do follow that now, or use my phone and type notes in, and ideas for research, but try to do something along those lines every single day, and that will help you down the road.
Don't neglect your interests outside of work, whether that is your family, other interests that you have. Believe it or not, there are other things to do in Murray, and there are other organizations to be involved in. There are lots of activities, and if you don't know what those are, ask around to some of us who've been here for a while. There are places you can go and things you can do. Develop interests and connections with people and places and organizations around here besides just the university, and that will help you to maintain some balance and some sense of yourself outside of work, and that is part of taking care of yourself as well as being able to do the things that you do. And hopefully that will also help you to worry less, which is the thing that I wish that I had done differently when I started, because I worried a lot. And so, but you don't need to do that. So
Can I add two things
You certainly may.
that have just come up because of everything that you've said? One is that you're talking about scheduling your time really tightly. I agree. Schedule time to exercise. Mm-hmm. It will be good for your body. It'll make you a better faculty member. You won't be in such bad shape at tenure time, right? I mean, it's all positive stuff for your mind as well as your body. Whatever you do, it doesn't really matter. Just schedule it in. Because if you don't schedule it in, that vacuum will be filled up with something else, and your health will suffer from it. I learned that. And the second thing is the chain of command. There's a reason why you have a chair, and then a dean, and then a provost. Don't jump the chain of command. That came up with the political thing, right? I did that once. It was very innocent, but trust me, you didn't do it the second time.
It can create big problems.
It can, and it's, you might have a great idea. Oh, I bet you the provost would love to hear this. They probably would, but, there's a reason why you have a chair and a dean, and go through the chair, then to the dean, let the dean take it to the provost, whatever happens to be. And hopefully they're as supportive as mine have been.
And I'll add one more thing. When I was a first-year faculty member here, I had a couple of older colleagues, and I remember that every morning they had a break in their classes, or most mornings, from 9:30 to 10:30, and they would walk across campus and go have coffee, and I thought, they are just wasting time. Why aren't they working harder? They should be in here advising students, because I was all about the work and I was all about using time wisely and not wasting time. I wish I had done that. I wish I had spent more time just sitting around talking to colleagues and having a good time and creating those breaks during the day. Anything else, or do we have time for a quick question or
Does
two?
anybody have any questions for our panel? Sure.
Yeah, with social media nowadays, we have some of us are on Facebook and Twitter, some of our students are on Facebook and Twitter. Could you just speak about kind of how you handle having your students kind of in some of the same social spheres that you might be in online?
What the theater tends to be a pretty together group anyway. So for the most part, I mean, I am friends with pretty much all of my students, but that's me. My chair is not friends with any of the students. Though if you were to meet my chair, and you would be surprised. You would think he probably would be friends with all, because that's the personality is. And yet he very clearly makes it no, this is one thing, this is another thing. So for me, it works, no big deal. I've had to unfollow several of my students because I'm just uninterested. But that's fine, because for certain students, for me and what I do, it's important for them to feel like they have that connection with me. But that's my discipline, so I imagine it's very personal.
I taught, I'd been an administrator for a few years and then went back into the classroom last fall and taught an intro to ed class, and I didn't friend anyone or respond to those requests until after the semester ended.
That's how I do it
Me
too.
too.
Yeah.
But you
And
do
that-
run into some trouble with that. Like, if that ever happened, and then I had them in a doctoral class. I mean, that always happened. They would
Yeah.
friend me, and I would say, okay, and then there they come to class. But, I've been on Facebook since 2002. I was in grad school and stuff back then. So it's just kind of a way of life now. You know what to say and what not to say, and I think you just have to abide by those rules yourself, pretty much.
One of my former faculty members in grad school, she actually created 2 profiles. So she has a personal profile and then she has a professional profile on Facebook. And her professional profile, she doesn't put like pictures of her family or anything personal on it. And that's where she lets her like undergraduate students. I'm actually friends with both her profiles, but that's where she lets her undergrad students and others that. So if you are concerned, but you don't really want to just say no, then that might be an option for you, is to create sort of this is my teacher profile that I'm willing to let students be a part of so that I can have a connection with them, but I don't feel uncomfortable letting them see anything personal, so might be a way to do it.
I don't have Twitter, I don't have Facebook, I don't do any of those things. So for me, it's very simple. I also know a lot of people that had it and got off. They just said, it's dumb. I watch my wife, all she does is stalk people from high school. And I'm just like, why do you do this to yourself? It's that in baby photos. And she's like, I want a baby. Shut up, really. Beyond the issue I have with it, other than it's just the giant vacuum for your time, and I would get sucked in, that's why I don't do it. I would totally get sucked into it. It goes back to the politics thing. It is so easy to say the wrong thing, react to the wrong thing. You may or may not be completely sober when you post something, or whatever it happens to be, and you're done. Or you can be done. I know we all know that. I mean, we've all been around this for a decade now, but this, I don't want to scare people, but this can be a very political environment. And I mean, you can get all the way up the chain. If you pissed off the wrong person up the food chain, that's it, you're done.
Well, and
So,
speaking of politics,
can
the
be.
trick
I'm
with
not saying-
Facebook can be just your political, if you have general, broad
Mhm.
political interests, that can be problematic when you have students on Facebook, because it just gets into your personal life, and then your students form opinions maybe based on what they're seeing on Facebook, and you don't want that. You want their opinions to be formed based on the teaching and the work you're doing with them, not on something that is separate from that.
And I wait until they're graduated, and then I'm pretty selective.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, a lot of them are bored of my Facebook page, so probably defriend me pretty quickly.
Do they know that they're working toward that when they're in their class?
I think that's what my chair does though, now that you say that. I think he says that and it's like the reward. You make it through. You can be my Facebook friend.
Carol?
Can I just make a comment on that? I don't really pay that much attention to that. I don't friend my students on Facebook very often, but LinkedIn, any student that asks to friend me on LinkedIn, I do. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's easy.
You will get a lot of those. I get a lot of those. Since I teach with the library, like I get all the business students like friend me just because they've seen me once. And I try to make sure I actually know the student, like I know them. So that's an interjection there. Are there any questions? Yes.
Everybody spoke a couple of times about learning to say no and kind of guarding your time. If you fail at that a bit, especially at the start, do you have any advice for trying to like bow out of things gracefully if you realize that you are overcommitted, or who you should talk to, or how you should prioritize, what service things you can keep doing, or what might help you?
Go to your chair.
I was gonna say, go to your
that's
chair.
What I was
Yeah.
listening to.
Go, in my field, we have a program, so I would say go to your program director and then go to your chair if you have a director. What's the rest of Ed call them? Coordinators, I think. But whoever it is, your chair, your director, coordinator, whoever, they understand. They get it. You didn't mean to get involved with this. And for every couple of people that are out there that have too many committees or are overextended, there are probably a few people that I don't want to say they want more committees, but they probably should be on more committees.
Exactly.
These could be people that have been here 30 years and they're just old curmudgeons and they don't want to do anything. You're not a curmudgeon.
Thank you.
But they may be dry kicking and screaming, but they can be on that committee. You don't have to do everything. And sort of along those lines, I've sat on committees. Elizabeth and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago. You will be put on committees. You're not going to know what they are. You're going to go, yes, put me on it. Okay. You're going to get in there and go, oh my God, this sucks. I want nothing to do with it. I don't get it. Other people would care more. I don't. Go away. That's okay. And especially if you're overwhelmed with too many committees, then get the hell off that committee. You shouldn't be there. Because not only is it for you to get the service, but the committees are technically there for a reason. I said technically there for a reason. And so they're supposed to be getting something done. If you don't know what's going on, or you don't care, or you don't want to be there, somebody else should be there. So talk to your chair, get off, and go on with your life.
Find out about it. To end that, to close that, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to, this was a cartoon that I saw on Facebook yesterday, and it was, the statement was, I hope, it was about higher education, I hope that when I die in either a faculty meeting or a committee meeting, because the transition would be so subtle. Yeah, I did too.
Are there other questions? I think we have a lot of honesty going on here, so. Dr. Harris.
This may be a question for you, but they brought up the residential colleges. What's the procedure for that?
The residential colleges, HR will assign you a residential college, and then you will get emails from the person who's in charge of that college. You can be as involved as you want to be. I am very involved in Clark. That's my college. I coached their academic tournament team to an undefeated season last year. And I really encourage you to do that because it gets you to know students outside of the setting. I actually hang out with some of those students now. So HR will assign it to you. If you don't know who your college head is or you don't get an email from them, ask me and I will tell you who their college head is and then email them. And that's how I got involved. I had a great college head my first year and he came out here and we sat down here and he said, so what are you good at? What do you like? What do you do in your spare time? I was like, well, I like trivia. He's like, I need an academic team coach. And there it was. So I've been doing that for 3 years. So if you want to know who your college head is, I would be happy to connect you with that person.
So do we get an email about our residential college, or is that on MyGate?
You can actually tell which college you're in on MyGate.
Okay.
There is a way to do that, and I don't know with all of you yet if you have it. Actually, if you have students in a transitions class, that's an assignment they have to do, is they have to figure out which college they're in. So it's a good thing to know how to do. And then, like I said, most college heads will email you. That's one of the things they're supposed to do. And if you're not getting those emails, we can certainly put you in touch with the person who can help you with that.
And if you know your college, you can always show up on Saturday to help with moving.
Yes,
Yeah.
help with
Which is,
Or even if
you know,
don't
that way you
show up.
Yeah,
meet
just
the new
show up again.
students, you meet some parents, you meet the
It is
college
fun.
head,
Yeah.
and
Get some
other
exercise.
faculty working.
And you exercise that day.
Yeah.
So,
And you can
because
carry
you're taking
pillows.
up and down
It's okay.
stairs. Dr. Beth?
When are they going to contact us since the move-in day is coming up on Saturday?
Well, I don't think they really necessarily, and maybe you can say this, they expect you all to be there because they're so new.
How do they pick us?
That is a good question. It is sort of a random, it's just to keep, all of the colleges have about the same number of faculty and professional
So
staff.
I'll just show up on
assigned.
Saturday?
But yes, if you just show up on Saturday and
Pick a college.
Go to a
Yeah,
college.
pick a college.
Ran-
And
yep.
even if you're in an AZAR meeting, they can maybe say, hey, I was in Hester a lot, can I be in Hester? And they might put you in Hester.
That, my
And there
first
is
year,
a
I
little
went
bit
to the
of
wrong
money
college.
that
Yeah.
you
No big
can
deal.
earn
I still
from
got credit.
involvement in residential colleges. A little stipend. It's based on the amount of service you provide and the type of service you provide to the college. Years ago, when I was a college head, faculty could earn up to $1,200 a year added to their base salary. Those days are long gone. I think now it's maybe the max is 300 or,
Well, and
and
it's
it's
just cash,
not,
it's
and
not
it's just a
added to the
cash
base.
payment. But, you know, it's a nice kind of thing.
Terrible change.
But there are other things you can do. There are events. One of the coolest things that I've done twice is they have these things called IDC 199 courses. It's a 1-credit course that you propose to the colleges. You teach it within the college. It's somewhat limited to students in that college, but toward the end they kind of let other people come in. But that's a really fun way to try out new course material or just approach a topic that you're just kind of interested in, but you don't think you have 3 credits for, or the deans or chair support to try.
Yeah.
It's a great way to do that.
And that's $750.
That's
Yeah.
$750 too, yeah. So, has anybody else taught one?
Yeah, I've taught 2 different ones, so it's been, and it's free. I've
It's
done a
been
lot.
my most fun experience as
Yeah.
a teacher is teaching those 2 courses.
Yeah, it's
Just
fun.
because the rules are a little different, I guess you
Yeah.
could say. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can make up fun classes.
Yeah.
Where would it be on my game?
And my gate, and I have to look because I haven't looked where it is in the new my gate, but I think it might be on the admin tab.
Is there another question for the panel while I figure this out? And you might haven't been assigned yet.
But I went to Great Beginnings my very, very first year, and I hadn't been assigned yet. And so I just arbitrarily picked Elizabeth. I don't know why. I don't remember why. But I showed up. I schlepped
Yeah.
pillows up and down and talked to people, and it was great. It was a lot of fun.
It is fun.
I mean, it's hot, it's sweaty. I mean, there's, and you don't have to. You can sit somewhere and just chat. You don't have to be physical about it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's lots of different
And you
things.
do get a free t-shirt.
And you get a free yeah.
Yeah.
So I had an Elizabeth t-shirt, and then I was
And free
actually,
lunch,
yeah,
too.
and then I was assigned to Hart. So I'm actually Hart. But I have a niece named Elizabeth, so it was really great. So I just gave the t-shirt to her, and she thought that was awesome. So just show up, pick a college. It doesn't matter. And I still got credit because when they assigned me, I said, well, I did Great Beginnings here, and they said, oh, okay, and I got the check mark anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's not that big of a deal.
It's kind of fun to
But it's fun.
meet the students and
Yeah.
see the parents and all of that too.
Yeah.
You know.
Ease their minds a
Oh,
little bit.
yeah.
They're all a little nervous
Yeah.
that day. So.
Yeah.
Any other questions? What a great audience you've been.
Yeah.
Really interested in residential college, I'll try and get some answers and send me an email and I'll try and get that out for you.
We're done.
All right, thank you guys for asking questions. Thank you all for